Good morning, grade 10. So I'm not around today, even on Wednesday and Friday, because I am attending two seminars right now and I cannot really multitask attending two seminars and conducting classes all together. So I just created this quick lecture video in order to introduce to you our new topic, which is circles. Now, while you are watching this video, you will encounter some questions that will pop up on your screen. You will have to answer those questions based on what you understood on the video, so I can see if there will be further discussion regarding the topic. But our topic for today will just be merely recap of what you already know about circles. It's just very important for me to make sure that you already know these things before I start discussing the theorems as well as the formula for the circle. Okay, so please don't skip parts of the video. You have to make sure that you watch from the beginning up to the end, because you might miss some questions if you do that. So let's start. Okay, so let us first define circle. So a circle is a closed curve consisting of all points in a plane which are at the same distance, or they are all equidistant from a fixed point inside it. When we say circle, like what you see here, meron tayong set of points around this curve, or that forms this curve, and kung makikita nyo, wala siyang endpoint, no? And this is where we call it a circle. Okay? Now, how is a circle different from an oval? Pag sinabi nating circle, lahat ng points outside, itong bumubuo dito, ay equidistant to one fixed point inside it. Ano ba yung fixed point inside this circle? That is what we call the center. So the center, or this point, is equidistant to the set of all points forming the circle. So itong point na ito, nasa gitna, ito lahat ay, itong point na to is equidistant. Ibig sabihin, whether I draw a line from here to here, or dito, papunta dito, or dito, papunta dito, kung saan mang parts nitong round na ito, or nitong circle na ito, it will remain the same measurement. Kasi magkakapareho lang yan ng layo. Okay? Yun ang ibig sabihin ng equidistance. Equal distance. Okay po? It is usually denoted with a letter. In this example, we call the center as point A. Okay? So if I ask you in the future, what is the name of the center, or what point is the center, you will answer kung ano yung point na katabi ng center. Next, we now have what we call the circumference. I'm sure you already know this, but the circumference, it is the outer curve that lines the circle around. Okay? Kung makikita nyo, naging pula yung paligid ng circle natin. So, itong buong ito, itong linya na to, na bumubuo sa circle, kumbaga yung kanyang outer layer, yun yung ating circumference. Tandaan na, circumference. And then, the circumference is the set of infinitely many points forming the circle. Bakit siya infinitely many? Because we cannot really determine how many points there is that builds or that makes up the circle or the circumference. Okay? Next is the radius. So, yung radius natin, it is a line formed connecting the center of the circle. So, ito yun. Pag kinoconnect ng line yung center of the circle to a point in the circumference, so to any point on the circumference, that is what you call radius. Okay? So, radius ang tawag natin dito sa line na nagmula sa center papunta sa circumference. So, as illustrated, the radius of the circle is line AB. Ano? So, kung ano ba yung mga endpoints ng line mo. So, it's from point A to point B. Ibig sabihin, this is line AB. And And this one naman, you can only guess, this is also called line AF. So the radius here is AF, while this one is AX. So although these are three different lines, pero sila lahat ay radius. Okay, ibig sabihin then there are infinitely many radius in a circle. Kasi hanggat mayroong point sa circumference, ganun din kadami ang radius ko. Okay? Anong common lang sa kanilang lahat? They have one common point, which is the center. So AB, AX, AF. Miss, pwede po bang magkabaliktad? Pwede po. Pwedeng BA, pwedeng FA, pwede ding XA. Wag lang BX, wag lang BF, and wag lang XF. Ano? Kasi iba na yon. Next. Now, what if the line extends from one point of the circumference na B, pumunta siya sa A, pero lumagpas siya, pumunta pa siya dun sa kabilang side, which is C. Kung makikita ninyo, dalawang radius na to, diba? So, isang radius AB, and then another radius AC. Now, they are connected to each other. It's just one single line passing through the center, connected through the points of the two points of the circumference. So, sabi dito, a line connecting 2 points on the circumference passing through the center of the circle is called the diameter. Okay. Now, always remember that the diameter is twice the measure of the radius. Kasi kung mapapansin nyo nga, dalawang radius na siya. So, pag tinanong naman kayo, halimbawa, given ang diameter at ang pinapahanap ay radius, all you have to do is divide it by 2. So, for example, if the radius is 4, therefore, the diameter is twice the measurement of the radius. So, ita-times mo lang sa 2 yung radius, magiging 8 yung diameter. Likewise, if the diameter measures 8, all you have to do is divide it by 2 to get the measurement of the radius, which is 4. Okay? This is another example of a diameter. So, line DE or line ED. Ayan. Now, what about this one? Kung mapapansin nyo, these are still 2 points or a line connecting 2 points along the circumference, pero hindi siya dumaan sa center. Since hindi siya dumaan sa center, this is what we call a chord. Pero, in math, once there are 2 lines or 2 points connected by a line lying on the circumference, siya ay tinatawag natin na chord. Which means, the diameter is also an example of a chord. Ano? So, ang diameter is example ng chord. Okay? So, another example of a chord, kung mapapansin ninyo, yung end points ng line natin lies on the circumference. So, one point here, and then another point on the other side of the circumference. So, ang tawag natin dito ay chord. Okay? Mukha siyang bola ng basketball. Okay, next. Now, what if the line overextends? So, the line overextends, hindi na siya lying on the points or on the circumference lang, lumumpa siya. So, it went over and beyond, and this is now what we call a secant. A secant. If the line overextends outside the circle, it is now called a secant. Remember ha, magkaiba ang chord, magkaiba ang secant. Now, if at least one point of the line lies outside the circle, it is still considered a secant. Hindi siya kailangan na dalawang points ang nag-overextend, like this one. So, one point lies on the circumference, but another point of the line went beyond the circumference of the circle. This means that this is still a secant. This is not a chord. Okay? Basta may nag-overextend na isa, siya ay secant. Next, what if the line doesn't pass through the circle? So if the line does not pass through the circle but lies on one point of the circumference, it is called a tangent. Ano? So a tangent, sumabit lang siya, nagkataon, sumabit siya dun sa one point of the circle. So, hindi siya pumasok sa loob, nandun lang siya sa labas. This is what you call a tangent. Okay? So, what is the name of this tangent? This is tangent BC or line BC. Okay? Again, tandaan, when we say tangent, it doesn't pass through the circle, but it lies outside the circle, then that is a tangent. Like this, like this. Okay? So, sa labas lang siya palagi. Nag-meet lang siya at one point, pero hindi siya pumapasok sa loob. Okay? Next. So, what about some parts of the circumference naman? So, there is what we call an arc. So, an arc, like you see here, meron tayong medyo thick na red curve around the circle, although some portions lang. From point B going to point C around the circle, this is what we call an arc. So, an arc is a portion of the circumference or a portion of the circle. So, from point B to point C, meron tayong arc. Okay? So, kapag siya ay tinanong kayo, can you give me a name of an arc? I have here arc BC, not line BC. Magkaiba yun ha. Kasi kapag line, ito yun. Papunta siya dito sa gitna. Pero dahil around the circle, ang tawag natin sa kanya ay arc BC. Now, arcs can be classified as minor arc and major arc. So, a minor arc is the smaller arc all the time. Kung mapapansin nyo, itong portion na to, B to C, is smaller than that of the opposite side. Ano? Kaya tinatawag natin siyang minor arc because it is smaller than the other or the opposite side of the circle. Now, the bigger portion or the bigger part of the arc or the circumference is what we call the major arc. Kasi mas malaki yung nasasakop niya compared dun sa kabila. Now, this we call arc CB. Arc CB, while the minor arc earlier is arc BC. Miss, bakit po ganun? Because we name our lines or our arcs clockwise. So, parang takbo ng orasan. So, yung takbo ng orasan natin, since we're naming the major arc from point C papunta kay B, so that is arc CB. Kung kanina naman sa major arc, or sa minor arc from point B to point C, so siya ay arc BC. It matters a lot. So, please remember. Now, let's move on. Now, going back to our minor arc kanina, if you remember, ito yung minor arc natin, BC. If you will look at this, pag kinonect natin yung point B sa center, it gives you one radius. And then another point dito sa C, pag kinonect natin siya sa center, it will give you another radius. So, in total, we have 2 radius or 2 radii. Yung radii po is the plural form of radius. Okay? So, anong tawag dito sa portion na na-cover nung dalawang radius at saka ng isang arc? So, the portion that is being covered by the arc and 2 radii is called the sector. Okay? Sector po ang tawag natin dyan. Remember, 2 radius or 2 radii and an arc. Okay? And then, if you remember kanina sa chord, it is a line connecting 2 points on the circumference. So, connecting point B to point C, di ba? So, this is a chord. And then there is an arc. Now, the area being covered by the arc and the chord is what we call a segment. Okay? So it is a part of the circle between a chord and an arc, and we call it a segment. Okay, so the difference between a segment and a sector is that a segment is an area between a chord and an arc, while the sector is an area between two radii and an arc. So that is the end of my lecture for today. So please answer all the activities and tawag dito, yung last question, a summary question for everything that you have understood about this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me. Okay?